Already at his residence, Akita is in the bathtub, relaxing and reflecting that in his first no-rules fight, he managed to win. Then he remembers that Rikudu told him she would give him a reward and he wonders what it could be. At that moment, someone enters the bathroom asking for permission. It was his roommate, who, wearing a swimsuit, asks him if he happened to forget it. The young man is impressed and mentally asks himself what kind of clothing that is, questioning if the reward would be what he is thinking. Then the girl asks him to stand up. But before he does, she pulls him inside the bathtub, asking him not to be embarrassed, while the young man begs her to wait a bit. Already seated, he wonders if he is dreaming. He states to himself that it can only be that and that he is certainly dreaming. However, those thoughts break when Rikudu asks for permission while she washes his body. Laughing a little, she asks him to relax. Nevertheless, Akita can only ask himself what is happening and if this is how it feels to be touched by a girl. He repeats mentally that he must relax, but then questions what is happening and if she is running her hands all over his body. He feels her fingers sliding over his skin, the soft touch that tickles him. And as if it were not enough, he senses the warmth of her body. He thinks that he is about to lose his seal. He thanks it in silence for having accompanied him all those years. But Rikudu comments that he is already done. She gives him a small tap and states that there is no problem, that everything is in order, assuring that he does not seem to have any fracture or serious injury. Hearing that, he asks if she did all that just to check if he had no injuries, something the girl confirms, although she asks what he thought she was going to do. Then he mentions that she had talked about a reward, so he imagines something else. Rikudu laughs and asks if he's that anxious. She reveals that she prepared something with great affection, so he can finish his bath and wait for her. Akita states that he will do so, and his roommate comments that it would be a problem if he started bleeding, so she asks him not to get too excited. That leaves him confused, wondering what she prepared for him while she leaves. Already somewhere else, Mitsuharu laughs while watching a fight. He confesses that he is impressed, since young Akita managed to defeat the karateka. He asks his secretary if he is not brilliant, and the woman replies that he seems as happy as if he had won that fight. The man admits that it is true, but clarifies that this is not the point. He explains that if it had been a fight with rules, the student would have undoubtedly lost, but he ended up winning because it was a no-rules fight. All of that was possible precisely because there was not something that limits them. Immediately, he reveals that he always thought about that and asks himself what a fight really is, answering that it is a struggle without rules, and that is the true essence of combat, using only fists. He considers that there are many ways of thinking about it, but he preferred to focus on preparation, since once the place and moment of the confrontation are determined, one can even use weapons or prepare mentally. But he asks if something with so much planning can be called a fight. Therefore, he says it must be something spontaneous and accidental, being that the essence of everything. Only in that instant can a force different from common martial arts develop. However, he immediately questions how he could make that happen spontaneously. He reveals that he made all participants of his event use a device that notifies them when another contestant is nearby. In addition, he defined a duration of 3 months and explains that nobody can endure 24 hours a day for 3 months without lowering their guard. That is why he asks what we think will happen. He answers that while they live their daily lives, at some point they will run into another participant, and without time to prepare, the fight will begin. He calls this type of confrontation the Mitsuharu Hikari method. He mentions that this is why it is a perfect rule and that only a genius could have thought of something like that, making clear that he is that genius. His secretary replies that she is glad for him but still wants to give him a piece of advice. The man asks what it would be, and the woman explains that a long time ago Plato described the world of truth as the world of ideas, and said that this real physical world was an imperfect reflection of that one. That is why perfection does not exist in this world. The president, somewhat discouraged, asks if it was necessary to say something so depressing, and his secretary replies that it was only friendly advice. On the other hand, in a hotel, someone was tied up. It was one of the participants. In front of him, there was another, who comments that it seems some idiot invented those rules, since they are full of flaws. Before that situation, it is explained that martial arts serve as a path to become the strongest. They can be different from each other, but the goal of all is the same: to reach supreme strength. At that moment, an injured man asks to be left alone. His aggressor replies that that is curious and asks if he did not want to be the strongest. With a knife in his hand, he questions why they do not use weapons. Returning to Mitsuharu, he laughs and asks his secretary, Shiratori, to look at that, stating that an interesting fight has just begun. But the woman begins to leave, asking him not to bother her while she sleeps. She adds that she is not interested in those fights that interfere with her precious sleep. The president asks if she is sure, explaining that this time it is one of the best fights since, in the end, one of the participants is a high school student. He explains that she is a girl who practices jujitsu named Kureha Takayanagi, an elite fighter of whom they say she learned shoulder lock techniques even before she started talking. In addition, her videos hitting other students went viral, which turned her into a very popular influencer. It is evident that she is a powerhouse who has already won national tournaments, and he considers it incredible to have a gem like her in his event. He begins to question whether that high school girl can fight without rules, and if she could defeat a man. He concludes that that fight will be a real spectacle. Then, his secretary mentions that she knows she is famous and that she catches attention, but asks what kind of person her opponent is. The man replies that he is just anybody, clarifying that it seems he never trained martial arts. Shiratori understands, but points out that the guy has a criminal record. Already in the prelude to the fight, the girl comments that it seems they bumped into each other by accident, but proposes to introduce themselves. She states that she will start, saying that her name is Kureha Takayanagi and that she practices jujitsu. Then she asks him to say his name. The man replies surprised, saying that he did not know that there were girls participating in the event. Takayanagi answers that that is right and asks if he thinks that a woman cannot defeat a man. Her opponent replies that he does not mean that, but the girl mentions that it is what most people think, although she believes that in reality, that is inspiring. She adds that she has practiced combat since she was a child. She prepares and confesses that they say jujitsu can make a person surpass the gender barrier. Then she begins to approach, and by making a slight movement, her opponent asks if she wants to shake his hand, extending it. The girl takes it, and with a quick movement focuses on the man's lower part, creating a favorable guard position as a starting point for attack and defense. With a spin, she manages to position herself behind him and apply a rear choke. The girl comments that this is the end, since once the technique locks in, it is impossible to escape. The man tries to say something, and the girl asks him to speak louder. Then he stabs her in the arm. Feeling it, she immediately moves away. Her opponent comments that she ended up releasing him, but acknowledges that it was a good technique. He adds that she surely practiced for hours and that she is an excellent athlete. Kicking her, he asks what all of that was good for. He confesses that even someone extremely strong can yield to a simple knife, asking what is the point of strengthening oneself only with hands. He says he cannot understand it, and giving her another kick, asks if she still wants to fight. The girl, trembling in fear, apologizes and begs him not to come any closer. The man smiles and asks if she can see it, stating that that is what violence is about. Akita, getting dressed, reflects that they took him by surprise. Remembering seconds earlier, he thinks he has already received enough reward, but his roommate still prepared something else. He wonders what reward could surpass what he has received so far. Then he sees that what she wanted to give him was a knife, leaving him speechless. Rikudo comments that it is a gift and states that if he wants to survive in a no-rules event, the best thing is to use a knife. However, Akita replies that it is against the rules to use weapons, to which his roommate replies asking if he is sure such a rule exists. The young man insists that it goes against the laws of Japan. Rikudo assures that he is still naive. She reminds him that it is obvious that people will use everything at their disposal, since in the end, it is an anything goes. She asks if he does not think it is naive to believe that his opponents will play fair. He denies it, but the girl states that it is fine and that she will teach him the basics of how to use a knife. In addition, even if he does not intend to use it, it is best to be prepared in case a cutting weapon is used against him. Then she asks him to take it, something the young man considers very dangerous, but likewise, he takes the cutting weapon. Afterwards, Rikudo asks him to attack her with it, leaving him confused. She comments that she can endure it and asks him not to worry, to go without fear. She explains that first they will place the scene as if one of them had the knife. She asks him to imagine that this is his chance to take revenge, questioning if it is not an excellent opportunity. She asks him again to attack her. The young man freezes and begins to tremble. He reflects that although she tells him to attack her, he cannot because the knife is real. He knows that she has the confidence of someone who can defend herself, but wonders what would happen if she could not. He thinks about possible situations that could occur. Even so, he decides that he will attack her in a way that does not hurt her. However, when attacking her, Rikudo defends herself in a way that injures her companion, making him drop the knife and immediately scream that it hurts. He complains that she did not need to hit him for real, and asks what would happen if one of them got hurt with the knife. Rikudo, hearing that, asks if he is joking with her. The young man, scared, replies that he did not mean that. She questions if he is not taking the situation seriously. Rikudo bends down to pick up the knife and proposes that now they will switch roles. She points at him with the knife and asks what he will do if an enemy points at him that way. Akita, sweating, replies that he would probably run away. His roommate says that she understands, which leads the young man to question what she means by that. He then reflects better. The only escape routes are limited, and, to get out of there, he has no choice but to pass through her. If he tries to pass through her, he will be attacked. He understands that although it seems simple, fleeing can turn out difficult. He would not understand it unless a real knife were pointing at him. He considers that it is madness, but understands that this is how she makes him stronger. He states that it is fine. If he tries to run, he will be cut, but he knows he does not have what it takes to snatch the knife from her hands. That is why he will use another tactic. He claps in front of Rikudo. He reflects that this technique serves to make the opponent step back and remembers having seen it in a sumo broadcast. He will take advantage of that opening to escape. However, Rikudo grabs his hand and asks if he is stupid. At that moment, he remembers that the idea of fleeing from that woman was ridiculous, since unless he is willing to lose his life or pay the price, he has no way out. Just then, Rikudo stabs Akita's hand. The young man quickly falls to the ground and begins to scream in pain. His roommate explains that offering the hand like that to someone armed with a knife is the same as telling them they can hurt you, and asks if he believed that this would be only imaginary, clarifying that people do not think about being stabbed because, at that moment, violence does not exist in their world. She completes saying that she had expectations in him and that is enough of that. Hearing her, Akita wonders if she is going to eliminate him.